Hello, and welcome to another edition of Florida Sportsman's Action Spotter Podcast. We're going to have a good time today, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to make a quick trip over to Paradise, my favorite place to bill fish in the world, Nosara Paradise in Costa Rica. That's where Craig Sutton's going to tell us how the marlin fishing is. Then we're going to come back to reality. We're going to start up in the northeast corner of Florida, where it's been downright chilly since we talked last. Work our way down the East Coast through the Keys, work our way up the West Coast, and out the Panhandle, getting all the fishing reports. And I got a question for the guys, because, man, I see a lot of junky safety equipment on boats that the Coast Guard requires. I want to know what our pros, our professional captains, will take on their boats, not because of Coast Guard requirements for a charter boat, but when they're taking their family fishing, what do they want for safety equipment? That's the stuff I want on my boat. So let's get it rolling. We're going to make our first stop over in Paradise, and Craig Sutton will be checking in with us. He and all our action spotters are brought to us each and every week by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Shimano, bringing people and nature together. By Tournament Master Chum. Oh, it's the best chum on earth, all right. By Nosara Paradise Rentals, your dream vacation. By D.O.A. Lures, it's the unfair advantage. By Young Boats. And by Castaway Hat Co. They've got a hat for every adventure. Let's get it rolling and find out what Craig Sutton's been up to over in Costa Rica. Craigie, how are you?
I'm good, Captain Ricky.
Good. Tell me about fishing. Been
good. Mixed bag. A little slow on the marlin bite last week, but no giant mahi, but still some good ones. I mean, real good ones in the mid-30s, and then caught some grouper early in the week, and sailfish. Not a lot of sailfish, but they're kind of consistent. Onesies, twosies, threesies, that kind of stuff.
Okay, do you feel like they're picking up?
Yeah, it's, a couple weeks ago, me and you talked about it the other day, we were kind of slow. It was like 4 days. We had a real slow bite. I mean, we were catching some fish, but just, boom, just picked right back up this last week. So we were long overdue. I mean, even Superman has his kryptonite.
Oh yeah. Everybody has hiccup days, as you call them. Hey, Craig, I got a question for you.
Okay.
All right. I don't want to know about your charter boats in Costa Rica, because I know they carry the best safety equipment possible. I want to know on the Fishtastic, your personal boat that you fish 65, 70 miles offshore Jacksonville, Florida, what do you carry for PFDs and safety equipment?
Just the regular life jacket. I probably should get a little better tuned into the safety stuff. I mean, I got all the Coast Guard approval stuff. That's the same in Costa Rica. All our boats are U.S. Coast Guard equipped, just like they're here in the States. But, and I personally, I need to get an E-Perb on my boat. I just bought one last week and getting ready to mount it up this week.
I want it on that boat before it leaves the dock again.
Well, it doesn't look like it's going to be this week.
That's for sure. We got a little bit of weather. That's for darn sure.
A little bit of weather.
So you get that E-Perb installed, and then I want you to go down to Daytrex down on Talleyrand Avenue in Jacksonville, and I want you to get their flares. Craig, if you look out your window at your house, if I'm sinking at the Gulf Stream, you'll be able to say, I'll be darned, there goes Ricky.
I love Patrick. He fishes with us regular, and he's good people. But, yeah, they got the best there is.
Yes, sir.
No question.
You get it on your boat. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate the report.
All right, we'll talk next week.
Talk with you next week. Craig Sutton. Time to hit Florida. We're going to start up in the northeast corner with one Captain David Voorhees, who has been a little chilly this week, hasn't it, David?
Man, I thought this stuff was over with, Rick, but we had one more cold snap to come through, and I'll tell you, you really doing this for all the years I've been out here on the water, you think you really got it figured out. We had a nice little cold snap. Before the cold snap, we had 6 to 7 inches of rain. That's a lot of rain. So today I go out expecting what? Muddy water.
Sure.
It's going to be absolutely muddy. I didn't think the water would be cold because it didn't stay cold that long. It was only, 2 days cold, a cold snap for only 2 days. So I get out, and Ricky, it's the complete opposite of what I thought it would be. The water was gin clear and the water was cold. So, just when you think you got it figured out, Mother Nature will always throw you a curveball. But anyway, we got out, and, the cold water did make it tough. It was just before this cold snap. It was like the first of spring. Spring was starting to happen. We were seeing the finger mullets starting to run. We had our first gator trout last week, backs out of the water, reds crashing on the shoreline, all that stuff. And lo and behold, we get this cold snap, and they're back to acting like wintertime fish, which to me means very lethargic, a lot of slow fishing. You really had to let them eat it. We had several reds today, and we really did. The two young boys I had did so good. I was so proud of them. They did really good today. And I told them, I said, guys, you got to let these fish, they're going to pick it up and play with it and probably pick it up and move a little bit and then spit it out. Pick it up, spit it out. And sure enough, they were doing that today. And, but the boys did really good. They let the fish take it and run with it and got good hook sets. We ended up with 7 reds, a couple of nice keepers, some nice flounders, some trout. So, it was tough. We had to cover lots of water, move around, but it was, it was very unusual. I didn't expect the water temperature to drop. We saw 61 today, and the further I went down back into the creeks, the actual colder it got, which that threw me for a loop because I talked to a couple of captains who were out in the river today, and they saw, 65-degree water temperature. Now, we've seen, 67 already. So we've gone from 67 all the way back down to 61. And, boy, you talk about something that'll make fishing tough. And when that water it'll shock them. And it makes it really, really tough. But I don't think it's going to be around here for long. I think we got another little warming trend. I think by the time this podcast airs, I think we're going to have a good weekend, guys. A lot of our fish came out of shallow water. They were still up on the flats, which is what I was really surprised too. I wasn't expecting. I thought these fish might have moved into deep water, but they didn't. They were up on the flats, gin clear water. But I would still look at the water temperature and go back to winter style fishing, which is slow, and then slow it down.
That's a great report and a great lesson in that, David. You can't fish too slow in the wintertime. I had a guy today, where I live on the river, and I keep a pair of binoculars right out my back window where I can see, and I'm talking to somebody on the phone, and I look and I see something in the water. I can't really tell what it is. It's almost across the river from me. And, David, you know how hard that river was running today, right?
It was ripping, buddy.
Plenty of wind, plenty of current, nasty, ugly. David, there was a ginu exactly like the one you used to own in the middle of the river, broke down with the guy trying to get it started. And he'd bail for a couple minutes, and then he'd pull the cord once or twice, and then he'd bail because every wave was breaking over the side of his ginu. And thankfully, I just ran and pushed the button on my lift and got to him. By the time I got to him, he was on a red buoy that he had paddled to, and he was holding on to it. David, no safety equipment, nothing, what we talk about all the time. And it got me to thinking, not because you are a charter captain and there are certain things that you have to carry by law. What do you carry on your boat for safety equipment when you're taking Jill or you're taking a couple of your buddies out fishing?
Well, you brought up a really good point. It's just funny you say that because I'm getting ready to board a young gentleman who just bought his first boat, and I'm giving him his first boating lesson, his first out of 3. He's going to get 3 lessons from me, and I will take him out and show him the do's and don'ts, the rules of the roads, and so forth. But, I was reading up on all my stuff, and something I was unaware of because I had to look it up. I wasn't aware that an anchor is not you don't have to have an anchor by law.
Huh. I didn't know that
But
either.
let me tell you, I didn't either. In some, it varies in every state. Now, remember, a lot of these laws are state by state. So
Right.
in some states, you are required to have an anchor on board, an anchor rope. And I was looking at that, and I was thinking, for the inshore guys, you get in trouble out here. You break down, and you're adrift, no trolling motor. Man, you better have an anchor.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I mean, you're going to be drifting out into, you're going to be slamming into something, or you're going to be drifting up on to one of these mud flats, which will probably empty out in a few hours, so you could be high and dry and spend the night out here. That anchor is going to help you. Now, I'm going to say I carry all and above the safety equipment. And another thing that I always encourage boaters to have on board, especially new time boaters, is a very good and not a El Cheapy one, but a very good first aid kit.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And those are the two things I've used more than anything. I've never had to pull out a flare. I've never had to use a flare gun. I've never had to use my signaling device, thank goodness. But the things I have had to use when I've gotten in trouble, one is the anchor, and two, I've used first aid kits out here many a time.
Sure. All right, real quick, what do you take for PFDs?
Well, I use the ones that I like an inflatable that I carry on me, and I've got three different types. I've got the one where you have to manually pull the string. I got the vest that you also automatically inflates when you fall into the water. And then I've got one which is the belt,
Mm-hmm.
So personally, I'm going to have the one on me. And these are so comfortable, and they're not cumbersome, and they're really good. As a matter of fact, I have mine on right now, waiting for this young man to launch his boat and to set a good example of, hey, buddy, go invest in one of these. They're not cheap. They're a little expensive, but they're well worth it. And you teach your kids. And I made him promise when he bought the boat. He's got two young kids, and they have been fishing with me for about 4 years now. And I love his little kids. And I said, promise me this. You make those kids wear a life jacket until they're 13 years old, not 7 or 6, whatever the state requires, till they're 13. They become a teenager.
And put them in those inflatables so they're comfortable.
Exactly.
Don't put them in those Mae West things that they learn to hate. And if I know David Voorhees as well as I think I do, one of my dearest friends in the world, I'll bet you when that guy leaves the dock, that lanyard will be attached to his belt too, won't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I knew that. Cap, we appreciate your report so much, and please tell me we can check with you next week.
I'll be here, Ricky.
All right, I look forward to it. Captain David Voorhees. Time for East Central. Nobody strings them up down there like Captain Jim Ross does. Jimmy, how we doing?
Well, I wish I was stringing them up today. I felt like I got strung up today. The slowest the bite was, Rick. But
really,
that's what happens this late in the season when we get this strong a cold front.
Yep.
Water temperature in the lagoon went from 75 degrees,
holy smoke,
all the way down to 55 degrees
Come
yesterday
on.
morning. Yeah.
20 degrees?
Yeah. 20 degree swing in a day and a half. Yeah.
Woo! That's a drop. That's a huge drop.
You can imagine the fish responded accordingly. So.
Yeah. Crawled up in their beds and pulled the covers over their heads. What they did.
So easy to find today, though. All we did, we just drove around looking for little smoky bubbles coming off their campfires, and we knew exactly where they were. Yeah.
Yep, I understand.
But, no, before the front, though, absolutely dynamite fishing. The tarpon showed up. They were strong. The whole south part of the region, there were tarpon available. In the river system, the midday bite was really good this last week. I fished Sebastian around the Spoil Islands and some of the areas from Hog Point, Snag Harbor, all the way down to Washburn Cove. And there was plenty of fish cruising those shorelines in amongst the bait fish. Just good, solid mixed bag. We had jacks blowing up bait pods out in the middle by the ICW down there from the Sebastian River all the way north of Grant. We had black drum, mangrove snapper, ladyfish, bluefish, trout, snook, redfish, and of course, those couple of catfish that you can never seem to get away from.
Oh yeah!
But really, really good. Not a lot of numbers. It wasn't a numbers game. It was a species game. You're getting 2, 3, 4 of each fish, each species, on a trip. And then outside of the port, once again, going back out to that outside nearshore bite, I saw king mackerel of 35 pounds caught on artificial.
No kid.
Around the bait pods. Yeah, we had guys a couple of guys, they were coming in from offshore, and they'd been out wahoo fishing. They took one of their wahoo running plugs, lip plugs, threw it over and drug it back and forth between a couple of the bait pods where they saw a couple of king mackerel skyrocket, and they came back to the cleaning table with a 35-pounder.
How about that? Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Any sign of cobia?
Very little. Very little. I don't know where they have gone. Maybe one of the other guys in one of the other regions might know, but they're not in any numbers here. And which is really interesting because my cobia bush, although it's not in full bloom, there are flowers on it right now. So you would think, hey, there's at least a chance. And I guess the way I'm looking at it again right now in my front yard here, or my neighbor's front yard, I think based on how it's flowering, hold on a second. Let me make a prediction. Hold on. Let me walk across the yard. I'm gonna make a prediction.
All right.
Let's see what we got. I see plenty of buds.
Okay.
I see buds. So maybe they're still a little south of me and going to come back up this way.
We're going to call you a week away from cobia.
It's possible because this thing's budding up. So I've got my fingers crossed anyway. If that thing's that thing can't predict it any worse than the weatherman can predict the weather. So
that's for sure.
Let's go with it.
That's for sure.
Let's go with it.
That sounds good, Jimmy. Well, I know you're doing a seminar. I know you're doing a tarpon seminar tonight, so I'm going to let you get to it. But please tell me we can check with you next week.
I look forward to it, Rick.
All right.
Hopefully, I'll have some really good news for you guys and gals out there as well.
Yeah, find me a cobia while we're apart, will you?
I'm on the hunt.
Thanks, Jim. Our thanks to Jim Ross for a great East Central report, even though the cobia aren't there, which means they gotta be chewing down at John Earhart's city in Stewart. John, you got any cobia down there?
I got to tell you, Rick, I'm pretty disappointed with the cobia run thus far this season.
That's not good. What's going on?
Offshore, it's been pretty steady. We've had some big mahi caught this week. I've seen a couple fish that measured 50 inches. A lot of smaller schoolies. And this action was in 90 to 150 feet of water. Just finding a nice edge with just a little bit of scattered grass. And if you could get a kite up and fish some goggle eyes, chances are you were going to catch some big mahi. We have some big smoker kings up to 30, 35 pounds. Still getting a few blackfins, but they seem like they've thinned out a little bit. And we've been getting a couple sailfish each trip. So, it's been a good mixed bag. You just got to put your time in, and you got to have some drifts that are pushing an hour and a half, 2 hours, if you want to get a mixed bag of fish. So, definitely want to put your time in, and cover a lot of ground if you can.
Hey, let me ask you a question. I think everybody agrees that sail fishing is usually easier with live bait, and certainly with goggle eyes and blue runners, it's pretty easy. Dolphin, all right? You got to catch a dolphin, John. Are you going to troll ballyhoo? Are you going to put out some sardines? What are you going to do to put mahi in your box?
Well, if I was absolutely going to put mahi in my box, the first thing I would do would be assess the conditions. So with that being said, I would drive out into the ocean, and if I see a nice weed line, a real defined edge and a weed line, I'm going to troll ballyhoo. That is absolutely what I'm going to do. Now, if I get out there and everything just looks like, hey, there's just nothing impressive here that would hold any fish, I would want to put a kite up, and I would want to drift live bait. That's how you're going to get your mahi. So it really just depends on the condition. If there's no condition, live bait, absolutely. If there's a good condition, I want the ballyhoo because I know I can cover a lot of ground quickly, and I can find those fish, and I know the general area they're going to be in. on a day when there's no condition and I don't have an idea where they're going to be, that live bait is going to allow me to catch those singles and doubles that would be very difficult to locate otherwise.
That makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. I got one more question for you before you go. How's your inshore fishing?
The inshore fishing, it's been a little slow. I mean, we're catching 7 to 10 snook a day.
Ooh.
Most of these fish are slot size or smaller, so I'll take it. I would prefer to be catching 20 or 30 snook a day, but I mean, every spot I go to, we're catching a couple snooks. There's been some jacks mixed in, an occasional trout, and every once in a while we'll get a redfish, but it's been predominantly snook and jacks. And I expect to see some tarpon here shortly as well. So, I mean, it's been decent, and I think it's going to get better.
Any sign of grass coming back on Sailfish Flats?
I haven't seen much grass on the Sailfish Flats.
Okay. All your flats are still just pretty much sand, huh?
Yeah, I call my flats sandbars now.
I hate it. Man, I hate it. I want those grass beds back that we used to be able to wade for a mile in.
Yeah, we're starting to see it up towards the St. Lucie Power Plant in the Indian River. But once you get south of the St. Lucie Power Plant in the Indian River, I would say seeing grass in the river is unlikely at this point.
Man, that's a shame. Thank you, John. We appreciate it so much. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
I'll give you a cobia report next week.
I'll be looking forward to hearing it. Captain John Earhart. Our thanks to John Earhart for a great Stewart report, despite the fact he hadn't seen the cobia. Jim Ross hadn't seen the cobia. We sure haven't seen him in Northeast Florida. Alan Sherman, are you holding all the cobia down there in Miami?
I wish we were, but we're not.
Oh, my goodness.
There has been very few cobias caught in the last many months, actually. We sometimes get a little group of cobias that follow the rays over the shallow waters in Hawks Channel, and that didn't happen. And then we get them over the wrecks this time of the year, and that hasn't happened. Although April is often a really good month for cobias. So if they don't show up by April, I don't know what the story is. Now, flamingo, there's been quite a few caught for the last couple of months, mostly around the artificial, wrecks, rock piles, and the markers. But that's a long ways away from Miami and Stewart. So that's probably another group of cobias, I would think.
Yep. That sounds like it. What's going on in your area?
So we've had a lot of wind. It just won't stop. Gusts up to 30. Everybody got hit by that big cold front on Saturday and put everybody on shore, But the guys that are fishing are catching sailfish. Not lots of them, but they're catching them. It's been a mixed bag. The guys are just doing anything they can to create a catch. So the list is barracudas, kingfish, blackfin tunas. You're laughing.
Any report that starts with barracuda bothers me, but go ahead.
Well, look, it's not simple fishing.
That's right.
You're looking at 4 to 6 foot seas with 8 and 10 footers on occasion, and it's hard to fly a kite. It's hard to stand up, but people still want to fish, and there are fish being caught. There's been quite a few mutton snappers caught over the ledges outside of 90 feet, 80 feet on the shallow wrecks. So that's something that's been pretty decent. Yellow eye snappers, there's been a few of them caught. Amberjacks are being caught on the wrecks. So there was a nice mackerel, bluefish, and pompano run on the beaches with all this wind. So that's another thing that, and that kind of goes along with the big winds. You can fish a pier, a jetty. Well, I'd rather fish the pier. During these high winds, dirtier water, the fish aren't so shy from taking a hook, and the pompanos do like it when it gets like this. So that fishery hasn't been too bad. We still have sea trout spawning in the bay in a select few spots, and there's some decent sized fish. So those fish are available. At night, the tarpon fishing has been excellent. Outgoing tides, of course, it's kind of rough on the outgoing tides, but you can come on inside and fish some of the bay bridges on that tide. And with big live shrimp, there's been some good tarpon bites, especially on that outgoing tide. Other than that, I think the peacock bass fishing, largemouth bass fishing, is taken off, and that fishery is real good right now.
Yeah. Hey, Alan, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
I'm not talking about what the Coast Guard requires you to take for your charters, but on your Pathfinder, if you're taking Dana and the kids fishing, what what do you take for safety equipment? What kind of PFDs do you use, that type of stuff?
So I have a couple of the jackets that, are inflatable.
Right.
So I'll have them on. And then, of course, we have the normal, Coast Guard license approved with the decals, regular, life preservers, throwable life cushion, because all those things are required. As far as anything other than that, the only thing other than that I have is a cell phone and a VHF radio, with a good antenna. I'm not fishing offshore as much. If I was going to go offshore, I'd stick an E-Perb on the boat. If not everybody can afford them, or the subscriptions. But if you're out there offshore and you get stuck, it can save your life.
Yep. I always say the guys that go way offshore without an E-Perb just haven't been scared yet. If you live as long as I have and you've been really, really scared, you'll find that you'll carry that kind of stuff. Cap, we appreciate the heck out of it. Find us some better weather before next week, will you?
Oh, it's coming.
I'm
weekend,
ready for it.
The weather forecast is good.
Good deal. Thanks, Captain Allen. All right, thanks to Alan Sherman for a great report out of Miami, where things have been awfully tough with the weather, just like they have been all down the East Coast. Let's see if that extends all the way down to Alamorada. Captain Brandon Storen, are you with us?
I am here.
Tell me about your weather down there this week.
Yeah, it's still blowing. The month of March has lived up to its reputation.
Yes, it has.
Yeah, and fishing's still been pretty good. The tarpon bite was heating up right before we had this cold front. The water temperature was like 75 degrees, right where you want to be for the start of tarpon season. But we had this cold front, and I've never seen such a dramatic drop in water temperature in such a short period of time. This morning, the water temperature in some spots was as low as 64 degrees.
Okay, and what was it before the cold front?
76.
Wow, these are incredible drops. Jim Ross, that does our Indian River Lagoon report, told me that it went from 72 to 52 in that stretch.
It's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable how much it dropped in a short stretch. That was really, really cold weather for March, though. I'll be darned. Tell me what it did to your fish.
Well, definitely tarpon weren't happy. So today, I was off yesterday because I had to take care of personal things, but I went today. Tarpon definitely weren't happy. We caught our limit of mangs, and they were really nice big mangs. We did that first, and then we decided to go back and just try to catch some sea trout, ladyfish, jackerbell, stuff like that. We had a young kid on board, so just kind of geared our moves to something that would be good for him. But even trout and ladyfish, something that's usually as easy as it gets, weren't happy from that drastic drop. I hope that, things kind of bounce back tomorrow. But, since then we've been having good fishing, before this cold front, like I said, we're having that tarpon bite, big sea trout showing up, those big nice gators that we get in March and April, May showed up. And also some snook and reds have been around. I talked to some guys who did that today. They kind of got shut mouth in the morning and the afternoon. They pulled a couple rallies out. And that's that for the backcountry. Offshore, been a lot of big bluefin tuna moving on the edge of the reef.
Really?
Yep. Big schools of them swimming by in like as shallow as 20, 25 feet of water.
Woo!
And it's pretty cool to see 800-pound fish swimming crystal clear water right off the reef. But a couple people baited them up. Some people hooked up. Have not had any landed. Last year, the Kalex, the same time of year, targeted them, and they caught 2 in 2 days, which is really cool. Also offshore, they've been getting a little bit more sailfish. King mackerel still around. Mutton snapper, yellowtail snapper have been around still, and there's been a couple big stores around, which is pretty common for spring months.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I got to ask you, if the tuna.com and the Wicked Pistol show up down there, you got to give me a call, okay?
We actually had some exchange messages with them.
That's funny. That is
They
too
wanted
funny.
They wanted to trade a tuna trip for a store trip with Nick Stanzik.
Uh-huh. I hope he did it.
Maybe it'll happen one day.
Yep, I hope he does it. Hey, Brandon, I got a quick question for you.
Yes.
Not because of what the Coast Guard requires you, and not the stuff that you take on your boat just to meet safety gear, but what do you carry for safety gear if you're taking you and your lovely fiance out?
We have the ACR. I forgot exactly what it's called. I think it's the ACRX. Well, yeah. Well, it's just like that EPIRB where something, God forbid, happens, you weigh on the Gulf and you're out of South range, you can hit the panic button, immediately sends a distress signal with your GPS coordinates.
Right.
Get someone out there, and it's just kind of that peace of mind to have that piece of equipment on your boat for when you're out there where you have no cell phone range, when you're 30 miles out in the Gulf of Mexico. It's a good thing to keep on you.
Absolutely. Now, what kind of PFDs do you carry?
You know what? I can't even answer that question. I know I carry what the Coast Guard requires you to carry.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly the details of it. I just know it's what the Coast Guard requires us to carry. Knock on wood, never needed anything like that yet.
Keep it that way, Cap.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's so funny. I've had people ask me where life jackets are on the boat. And I show them and tell them. I tell them, God forbid, if something happens, if you fall in the water, just stand. Because 9 times out of 10, we're like in less than 6 feet of water.
Hey, that wouldn't help me.
Yeah, right. Well, I'll throw you the throwable cushion if you're on.
That's nice. That's real nice. Yeah. Okay. Everybody stand up at Rick.
I forgot your wife was something. Yeah. So I'll throw you.
Yeah. Everybody stand up at Rick. We'll miss you, Rick.
Reach out for the pointy end of this gaff right here.
That's it. All right, Cap. We appreciate it so much. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Always. Absolutely.
You got it. Captain Brandon Storen. I tell you what, I'm going to scold Brandon Storen, too. Every captain should have the best PFDs he can carry and know exactly where they are. Just today, an hour before we started doing the podcast, I always check out my back window when the weather's bad, and I'll be darned, I checked, and here's a guy in a ginu in the middle of the St. Johns River holding on to a buoy. And fortunately, I was able to drop my boat in the water in a hurry and go get him. No safety equipment on board. No PFD. Him bailing with a little can's all he had. Well, I tell you what, you let that ginu go down, that'd be the end of that. Let's talk about something better. Let's head over to 10,000 Islands and check in with one Steve Dahl. I've been astounded by the drop in water temperature we've heard today. Mosquito Lagoon dropped 20 degrees, and down in Islamorada, it dropped 12 degrees. That's hard to believe. Let's move over to 10,000 Islands. Captain Steve, have you seen any water temperature drops?
Yeah, about 6-7 degrees.
Yeah.
And it baffles me. I'm shocked to hear everybody else is kind of having the same thing. That big front that kind of plowed through Florida, recently. We literally only had one day where it was cold overnight. And usually it takes quite a few days. That Mosquito Lagoon one puzzles me because that, it's such a shallow body of water. It can cool off quick.
Yeah, but, obviously.
I have no idea why that is, but we dropped quite a bit too. I wasn't anticipating that big of a drop. Those are huge swings, but not uncommon. Those are surface temperatures, but when you're talking backcountry fishing, 2-3 feet of water, that's pretty much the whole darn water column. But honestly, it didn't really give us a negative effect by any stretch. We're still not fishing super, super strong like we had been for, such a long time, but it didn't really have an adverse effect, on our bite. So, we're still kind of plowing away with, the nearshore bite has kind of been our thing because the winds are starting to kind of
hopefully settle down a little bit. We had some days there where it was just, downright awful. And if we can get out to some of those, we're doing really well on snapper. 3 different types of snapper are in play out there. The sheepshead are pretty much all gone, those big breeders. But we're catching some snook as bycatch. There's permit out there. We're getting some cobia, not a ton of them, but it's a nice mixed bag. But you obviously got to pick and choose your days. So if you can't get out there, the backcountry is still producing. It's just those fish are just a little bit more scattered. The trout fishing's kind of slowing down a little bit. The redfish bite's actually still, okay, but the snook bite's still good, and that's what we want. At least for me, I love when the snook bite's really good, and our fish are starting to do really well, size-wise too. We're seeing way more upper 20-inch and low 30-inch class fish, which is great. We're still seeing some fish in that mid 30-inch range. Fish up to 40 are pretty uncommon. They're out there, but we're kind of a 30-something type of deal as far as size goes on our snook. So if you can't get out to the nearshore wrecks, the backcountry is still producing. It's just not been, A+, if you will. So,
Steve, I got a question for you. Why does it? Am I right to say that the snook actually get bigger on the East Coast than they do the West Coast?
They 100% do. If you start looking at like catches, East versus West, and I always talk about that because I think a lot of people have that in their mind when they come and fish with us down in the 10K or even on the West Coast, that, those 30-pound class, snook are, just as common as they are, on the East Coast, and we just don't have it. And it always puzzles me why. I've asked quite a few people why that might be. And no one can ever seem to give me the right answer, or at least an answer that I'm, think would make sense. But, a big snook to us is 35 to 40. And you might get 4 or 5 fish a year, over 40 inches, like true 40s. But then you go to the East Coast, and those 35s are somewhat common, and 40s, can be had quite often.
Yeah.
So it kind of puzzles me a little bit, and I'm not sure why that is the case. Like, our quantity is just as good, I think. We've had great years of juvenile fish in the area, so I mean, I don't know if it's a genetics thing just on the East Coast, a forage type of deal, but I can't quite figure it out. I wish we had them.
well, don't sell yourself short. You guys have got fabulous snook fishing. It's just different. All right, real quick before I let you go, any word on triple tail yet?
We're just not. It's been, this was kind of last year's deal too. We kind of talked about that, where it just kind of started off super hot January, February, and then just fizzled out.
Huh.
And we're seeing some fish, but we still have some challenges with the weather as far as those windy days and stuff. And the weird part for me, Rick, is that that's one fish I chase on the regular, and I really have had to try to go to Plan B because I'm kind of known for fishing for those, and they're just not there, and those big fish always seem to turn on after cold fronts. It's like they almost rise up to kind of sun themselves, or at least that's what I kind of always thought. And that played true year after year after year. And this year I just haven't seen those. And we had some really extreme cold fronts, and those big 15 to 20 pound, class triple tail, even 10 pounders have been really hard to come by. There's fish out there. They're small. They're undersized, but you got to run a lot of pots right now to find a true, good keeper, in that low 20-inch range even has been a challenge. So I'm not sure really what's going on,
I'd like to think it's cyclical because I think we're taking good enough care of them. We've got a good limit in place.
Yep.
And I don't think we're overfishing them.
I don't think so either. I just think, I think that's a nomadic fish. Everybody thinks they're kind of really, really predictable, but, that fish is free roaming a lot of the time. They're making stops and, just to kind of rest over at the, crab pots and any debris kind of floating out there. But, that fish is kind of a pelagic fish if you really think about it. And I've been trying to fish deeper and seeing if I'm missing something, and I'm just not finding them, So it's been a bit of a mystery for me.
Real quick, I'll tell you this. I have seen them crossing from Florida to the Bahamas before, more than 100 miles from any point of land. So they're kind of like mahi in the regard that you can find them anywhere, but you usually find them nowhere. So just because they're not under your pots right now certainly doesn't tell us anything hardcore about what kind of shape the population's in. I think we're probably okay. Steve, we appreciate it so much. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Oh, I can't wait. All
right, buddy. Captain Steve Dahl from down in 10,000 Islands. Hey, before we go to Southwest Florida, let's get a word from the Castaway Hat Company. I'll bet you don't even remember the day that all us cool kids would rub baby oil mixed with iodine to help us get even darker in the summertime. Being burnt was cool, and even if you weren't a surfing legend, you sure looked the part. Oh, man, have a lot of us paid the price for our vanity. We never knew the skin and health damage that awaited us. Today's fishermen have the option of being so much healthier in the sun than we ever thought of, thanks in no small part to Castaway Hat Company. They not only provide our podcasters with Castaway straw hats, but they make sure the coolest prints on the underside of the brims you ever saw are there for you. You may think your bimini top or your T-top blocks the sun, but as an awful lot of us OGs can tell you, you can't have enough protection from sun damage. Do what we do. Put on the sunblock and put on your Castaway straw hat. You'll look the part of today's best anglers, and you'll even be helping the environment. For each Castaway hat sold, the Castaway Company will pay to have 1 pound of trash removed from our waterways. The burning Florida sun won't be roasting your skin, and believe me, when you age a few years, you'll thank us old guys with a lifetime on the water. So go to CastawayHatCompany.com and get your best sun protection today. Our thanks to Steve Dahl, who said right now the snook are carrying the day for them because there's no offshore and precious little else. Let's move up the coast a little bit and find out what kind of effect this cold weather's had on Greg Stamper. Greg, how are you?
I'm doing well, Rick. We had a decent early week bite. Things were going really good for us, and then all of a sudden we got thrown this crappy water and this weather that just turned everything up, and things are going to be tough for us for a few days.
Yeah, I think it's going to be. It's calmed down a little bit up here. Hadn't warmed up a whole lot yet, but it is headed your way with a little calmer water. Did you get out at all this week?
Well, we fished all week except for the weekend when it really got bad. We had a really good bite because the water started to clean up for us very nicely. And then, now it's all muddy. I just got off the water today, and we had a really, really tough day today. I couldn't even get my limit of trout and, pompanos out of the question because of the muddy water. But, we went out there. It's never good when the client always asks you, like, hey, what do you think it's going to be like today? And you're like, it's going to be a struggle. But it is what it is. Earlier in the week, backcountry slams were not a problem. The snook were fired up, the redfish were fired up, and the trout was easy pickings. We also caught a lot of nice pompano near our passes and on our shoreline, but that's all changed. It may be a couple more days before we see that clean water. When I drive over the bridges and stuff, I can see it. It's about a mile and a half out of semi-clean, but right now it's going to be a tough few days for us down here in Southwest Florida.
Greg, we've had 20 to 40 mile an hour winds. We've had 6 inches of rain, and I walked out on my dock today to look at the chocolate milk. Crystal clear.
Really?
I give up. I just give up. I don't know what makes it muddy and what makes it clear.
Well, wind direction, and you must have had some good tides to move that water in and out. That's kind of what I'm waiting for. I need about 3, 4, 5, 6 good tides to bring that clean stuff back near us. The nearshore guys, they struggle as well obviously they haven't been out in the last 3 days, but before that they were doing okay with those permit. They were catching a few here and there. I don't know what happened to the cobia. It's like they just disappeared in our area. And other than that, it's just been a few sheepshead on the bottom. The offshore guys, they only have 1 or 2 days they could even get out there, and they couldn't even go that far, Rick. They only could get out there maybe to 70 feet and do their snapper thing.
Yeah, it's been tough, but this is March, Greg. We know this is going to happen, and we got to survive it every year. But things will slowly get better. We're getting into the second half of March, so that gets us closer to summertime. Cap, I appreciate it ever so much. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Oh, absolutely, Rick. Always looking forward to it. I'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Greg.
You know what Yamaha Outboards love? The genuine formula and consistency of Yamalu marine engine oils.
What?
Outboards are subjected to punishing conditions like high loads, salt, and humidity, a mix that automotive oils can't handle. Yamalu full synthetic and marine performance formulas are certified to protect against friction and corrosion for reliable performance every time. Find Yamalu marine oils at your nearest Yamaha Outboard dealer. Locate them at yamahaaoutboards.com/dealers. Yamaha, reliability starts here.
Hey, Raj, being consistent is a mark of a quality product. If you've been Florida's #1 chum for over 10 years, there's got to be a reason.
For 10 years, Tournament Master Chum has lived up to its name. That's why more tournament pros insist on Tournament Master than any other chum. It's the only chum with menhaden milk mixed right in. That means it gets the scent out faster and deeper than any other brand of chum. It comes in a grind size for every species from kingfish to catching bait. Your fishing time is way too precious to you second-rate chum. Bring the action to you by insisting on Tournament Master Chum. It's worth every penny.
When you're ready for the finest in custom-made flat spay or inshore-offshore hybrids, you are ready to meet the Young family in Inglis, Florida. For over 21 years, the Young family has built custom boats one at a time for every type of fishing. Nothing can sneak up on a flat quite like the Gulf Shore flats boats, and I've never fished a better hybrid than the Young 24s and 27s. Rob Young is a naval architect who takes tremendous pride in each and every build for each and every customer that wants their boat custom built exactly the way they want it. Is it time for you to move up? Are you ready to own the finest boat built? Then you need to visit the Young Boat Facility in Inglis, Florida, or check them out online at youngboats.com. Our thanks to Greg Stamper. He was a little down today. We don't usually hear Greg very down, but this muddy water and high winds and all have about gotten to him. And he's ready for this to pass. Was it any better up in West Central Florida this week, Ray?
Oh, you mean the thunderstorms and the tornado warnings and all that?
Yeah,
that kind of
all
stuff?
that. Yeah, all that. Yeah.
Probably not, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know how far south it went, but from about upper portion of the state all the way down, at least to where I live, it was pretty nasty. So Sunday was a lot better by a long shot, but I think we're on the mend for another day or two, and then we got another little thing coming. And other than that, I think we'll be good for a while. So
now the fronts start getting further apart. Now they're not stacking up on each other quite as much as they were. We're getting into the second half of March, and Ray, it only gets better from here.
It does. It absolutely does. And I'll tell you something though. Just before all this stuff came in last week, actually towards the weekend, there were snook on the beaches. Which is ridiculous. I mean, it's normally not until sometime late April or mid-April when they start going out, typically around the new or full moon, whichever is closer, and they start heading out. But guys were catching them out on the beach.
How about that? That's pretty good. What have you seen besides snook?
Oh, the guys are catching redfish. Things are still kind of spread out. I mean, they're catching a smattering of a little bit of everything, which I think is a really good sign that there's some recovery going on out here. So, that's the best I can hope for right now. But there are some areas that are absolutely on fire. Up around Clearwater, Dunedin, the trout fishing is excellent up there. Manatee River, Terracea, in that particular area of lower Tampa Bay, there's some really good action with redfish and trout, and the snook is just
the charts. I don't know. I can't tell it any better than that.
That's
the
good.
guys are really liking this. But
That's
I'll
really
tell
good.
you, that was last week. Now, once you get to this week, might be a different story with that big cool off. But I think it's going to warm up back real quick. But the thing is I think we still got a lot of kind of stirred up water. So if you're fishing in protected areas, you'll probably find some fish and do real well.
I want you to explain something to me, Ray.
Yes, sir.
All right. It blew here from 20 to 40 for about 3 days. It rained 6 inches. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I walked out on my dock this morning to see what the chocolate milk would look like. Crystal clear.
Wow. What direction was your wind coming from?
It was coming straight out of the north. It should have muddied it like crazy. I don't understand it. I'm not smart enough to figure it out. I am just not smart enough to figure it out. But I'm glad to hear it. And I'm glad to hear that your fishery, as you put it, is in recovery mode. You guys put up with some tough years, and I know those snook looks like we're going to make it through another winter without a severe cold getting them. So I think you might be off to a good year.
I think so.
No cobia showing up. Nobody can find a cobia. No cobia there either, huh?
There were some cobia reported last week. Same guys were also reporting some triple tail because they were kind of taking advantage of passing by channel markers and stone crab pots and that kind of thing, taking a look. And there was one guy that whacked a huge one. I mean, really big. I don't know what the actual size of the Florida record or world record is, but somebody said, I haven't verified this, but somebody said it was in the 20s. So that what this guy caught. So
that's a good triple tail. That's a real fine triple tail. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I can promise you that. I'd love to see that one. Ray, we appreciate it so much. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Yes, sir. You will.
Look forward to it. Thank you, Captain Ray Markham. Let's move on up into Homosassa and see what Mr. Mayor's up to. Mr. Mayor, are you with us?
I am here, right here in downtown Homosassa. It's quite the beautiful evening, and everything except for a bad front this past weekend with some tornadoes, everything's good.
You know, I just thought of something. I have these brilliant epiphanies from time to time. You remember the TV show Dallas?
Yep.
Okay. You remember JR?
J.R. Ewing. Yes, I do.
He belonged in Dallas, Texas, didn't he?
Yes, he did, with that big hat.
If he belonged in Dallas, Texas, William Toney belongs in Homosassa. That's what I'm going with. You are Homosassa, my brother. Tell me about
Yeah, man. You can't take the redneck out of Homosassa, you know? I mean, I'd be lost. I can't be a Texas. I'm not a cowboy. I'm just an old Homosassa redneck.
I want to see William Toney in New York City on Broadway. That's
no. I've been there a couple times. In fact, I was wild at the lights, but they told you, when you see the pigeons flying, don't look up with your mouth open.
That's right. Talk to me about your fishing. Tell me what's happening in the Big Bend.
All right. Here's what's happening on the Big Bend. We've had a hard easterly blow coming up here to this full moon, and it's keeping our water out. And the thing about that, at this time of year, we got water temperatures in the 70s, so most of your fish are still on the outside. Now, if this was a cold front blow, say in January, it can mean some good fishing for those folks with airboats and the mud boats to get way back up in the creeks and get in those holes. But the problem is right now, most of those fish have already dropped out. So, when they move on that outside, you still got to be very careful. I saw a lot of boats out there today banging the rocks and, finding some new Florida real estate. But we got a fantastic area off of Crystal River and Homosassa here called the Bombing Range. So when we're moving into this time of year, the Bombing Range is anywhere from 6 to 8 foot of water, and it's miles of just rocks and different types of reefs out there. Generally speaking, that you can motor across pretty easily without fearing of striking them. But what it puts a lot of habitat out there that we get Spanish mackerel, trout, sea bass, flounder, bluefish, jacks, just about anything moving through. and it's fun to fish it with just a soft plastic jig. Some of the better colors are watermelon red flake, and I like bourbon. It looks like a shrimp. So red jig head with that bourbon color kind of looks like a shrimp, and that's what those fish are out there feeding on. And a good thing about what I'm telling you about this area is that you can go out there and do a mile-long drift and not have to worry about turning around. But when you do get a hot bite, I recommend putting your man overboard button on the GPS. I'm still old school. I throw a marking jug, and that's where that school of fish will be. And occasionally we'll get stuff out there called muds, and that's where there's a shrimp hatch, and the fish, all the game fish are in there feeding so frantically on it. In the real gin clear water, you'll see it all stained up and cloudy, and that's a sign of feeding fish. And it can be trout, bluefish, Spanish mackerel, and all that is concentrated into like a 1 acre area.
Huh, I'll be darned. So look for the muds, huh?
Look for the muds, and to find them, you got to see which direction your tide's running. So that's where it's pulling it. So, if you're seeing it looks like a comet. When you see the head part of the comet, that's the direction they're heading. So look at your current, because it's going to pull that mud and it's going to taper off on the end, and you want to be on the up current side of it. And I've also seen the muds this time of year through April down in Chesapeake there in anywhere from 3 to 5 foot of water. Don't happen as much as they used to, but we do get them out there. It's a fantastic fast action, and it is live shrimp down there on the bottom, and they're hatching out. And as they're hatching out, the fish are just down there tearing them up, and that's what creates the mud. Majority of time is going to be Spanish mackerel, but a trout and other things. I've even caught cobia in them. So, we're getting to that time of year when you get these low tides like this, instead of beating and bumping around inshore and the wind's safe enough to get out there, just move out to that foul area or the bombing range, and you'll catch some fish.
Makes perfect sense to me. William, as always, we appreciate the heck out of it. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Yep, I'll be right here in downtown Homosassa, and they better not be speeding on those golf carts, because I'll get the law on them.
You write them up. You can make a
That's right.
You can make a citizen's arrest in Homosassa.
I will. I keep my notepad in my top pocket.
Thank you, Cap. All right, William Toney from Homosassa. Always a good time. Now let's head up into Northwest Florida. Good old Captain Peachy, Kevin Lanier, is there. How we doing, Cap?
Hey, Captain Rick. As I always say, I'm doing peachy tonight. How about yourself?
I'm doing fine. Finally starting to warm up just a touch. Tell me about your fishing. Does cold weather shut it down?
Well, Captain Rick, we went from 80 degrees, and a day and a half later we were 24. So woo. I don't think the fish know what they're doing right now. But some of the guys are getting out. There's still some redfish hanging around. Flounder fishing's pretty good. Sheep's head they're not showing in numbers like they quite yet. Those in the pompano seem to be running just a little bit behind. But the guys that are getting out, some of the best fishing right now in our area is off the seawall of Port St. Joe Marina. You'd be amazed at what they're catching off there right now.
So you think the best of the sheephead are still coming for you, huh?
Yeah, I think so. I really do. I mean, we've got a couple of trips coming up this week, and we're going to get out there on some of the nearshore shoals here and work those structures. And that's normally where they're the thickest. Mm-hmm. And but I think with these cold snaps that we've had, I think it's kind of put them behind just a little bit.
Yep. Kevin, I want to ask you a question. You're the perfect guy to ask. You, like me, can't stay out of the deep water, and I don't want to know what safety equipment you carry because it's Coast Guard required. I want to know what safety equipment you carry when you're taking your family, and what's important to you to have on board.
Well, one of the things I have is I have a sat phone. That is above and beyond.
Yep.
That's above and beyond. One of the things now that we're required as federal charters to have a vessel monitoring system on board, that does give us an extra line of communication. So there's good and bad to that whole thing.
Right.
But I don't skimp on my safety gear. I am a big proponent of, even though a flare by Coast Guard rules has expired, I don't throw them away. I put them in the bag and mark them just like the Coast Guard says to do, expired. But those And if I had to recommend one thing that everybody that goes offshore should have on that boat is they should have at least one parachute flare.
I've got them. I've been really scared. I've got a can of flares. If you want me to set one off right now, you'll be able to see it out your back window.
Well, see, that's the key. If you see a regular flare and somebody shoots it, unless you're looking right at it when they shoot it, they'll never see it.
Right.
But those parachute flares, they go up 1,000 feet, and they hang there.
Yep.
And that is, I don't care who you are. If you go offshore, you need some of those on your boat.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. It can always happen. What PFDs do you carry, Cap?
We've got the standard Coast Guard required PFDs. I don't remember the class right off the top of my head, but it's above the regular recreational style PFDs. So we've got what we're required to have as a charter. They stay on the boat. I don't care who's on the boat. We don't take them off. We've got those. If I'm on the boat by myself, I will put on an automatic inflatable PFD. If for some reason I'm out there by myself moving the boat around, because you never know if you're going to follow the boat or not.
Nope. When you're by yourself on the boat, do you clip your lanyard?
Without question.
How about that? That's outstanding. And what brought all this on, Kevin, is I live very close to the inlet at Mayport. And today I looked out my back window. Here is a guy. I mean, the wind's still 20 up here, at least.
Oh, yeah.
Here's a guy, fallen tide, east wind, okay? And the 3-horse on his Ginu has broken down in the middle of the St. Johns River. And he is trying to paddle to a buoy to hang on to. Well, thankfully, I spotted him and dropped the boat in the water, went and got him. He was hanging on. He did have a line. He had about a 6-foot bow line. He had it wrapped around part of the buoy. He was hanging on. No PFD, no nothing in the middle of the St. Johns River. Thank God he had a can that he apparently had for a pecan because he was bailing. Just about every wave was breaking over the side of his canoe. What a mess. I mean, what a mess.
Captain Rick, there's 100 things wrong with that story.
No question. No question. And I own a Ginu, and I can tell you got no business in the middle of the St. Johns River with them. Captain Kevin, as always, we appreciate your advice and your great reports. Now, you're taking the next 2 weeks off, is that right?
That's right. I have this unfortunate thing that I have to participate in over the next week and a half or so. I've got to go to the country of Panama and go marlin and tuna fishing.
Oh, Kevin, tears are just pouring down my face. I'm so sorry for you.
That is a bucket list thing for me. I've never done it in my life, and I have a buddy that's taken a few of us, and we're going down there to go fishing, and I am beside myself at this point.
I don't blame you, Cap. I am tickled to death to hear you get to do it. I want to get I don't know if you can text from Panama or not, but when you let that first big black go, I want to hear about it, whether it's by text or on the phone when you get home, okay?
I will be happy to give a good report, and if I can send you any pictures, I'll do that too.
I'll look forward to every one of them. Thank you, Kevin. And we can't get out of Florida without going through the Panhandle. Let's make a stop first around Pensacola and check in with one Tyler Massey. Tyler, how are you?
Doing good, Rick. How are you guys?
Good. Tell me about fishing.
So, yeah, inshore fishing's been still kind of our thing lately. And the sheephead are, they're really picking up. They've moved down towards Pensacola Pass. We're catching them on both our jetties on the west side of our pass. They're catching them around Fort Pickens Pier. Other areas they're catching them in Destin on the jetties there. It's just been, really almost kicked off all the way. So you can go out there and, catch, a decent amount of fish. And we're fishing Carolina rigs using live shrimp, live fiddler crabs, live sand fleas, all that kind of stuff. Any of that stuff's working pretty good, and just fishing on top of the rock structure. So you gotta kind of fight for your spot a little bit. But once you get up in there amongst the boat, you'll catch them pretty good.
Oh, that's wonderful. I tell you, back in the Panhandle, they just haven't really seen them yet, even in Northwest Florida. So it sounds to me like you guys are ahead of the game.
Maybe so. I mean, hopefully this is just the very beginning of it. Get another couple weeks of it, but our boats are catching. We cut our trip off at 10. Once we catch 10, we go do something else.
I like it.
And we've got 10 for a few days now, and it's been really, we're fishing a lot. We got our spring break crowds in town, so we're fishing every day right now.
Now, is that 10 for the boat?
Yeah, 10 for the boat. Once we get 10 in our boat, we move on to something else.
I salute you, Captain Tyler. That's been my attitude for many years. I'm the same way with dolphin. We get 10 dolphin for the boat, we're going somewhere else. Everybody gets the tuna, we reel in the tuna baits. All right, Cap, listen, I appreciate it ever so much. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
I'll be here, Rick. We'll see you guys.
Okay, Captain Tyler Massey brings tonight's little trip around the state to a close. He and all our action spotters are brought to us each and every week by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Shimano, bringing people and nature together. By Tournament Master Chum. Oh, it's the best chum on earth, all right. By Nosara Paradise Rentals, your dream vacation. By D.O.A. Lures, it's the unfair advantage. By Young Boats. And by Castaway Hat Company. They've got a hat for every adventure. Hey, it was 1953 when one of the true pioneers of big game fishing hung it up. No, it wasn't anybody we know. It was none other than Ernest Hemingway. I just don't want to do it anymore, he's credited with saying. The tackle has become so sophisticated, the fish just don't have a chance. Can you imagine walking him through the aisles of Strike Zone Fishing and showing him the latest and greatest from Shimano? Can you imagine handing him a Saragossa spinner that weighs less than his bait and could put more torque on a rampaging tuna than the giant old reels of his day? No, Ernest, I'm afraid you left us a little too early. The fights with the great fish still go on today, and we still sometimes get beat. But if I were a sea monster of your day, I think I'd rather do battle with you than face the tools that Shimano has stocked in Strike Zone Fishing some 68 years later. It's been a lot of fun this evening. I sure hope you guys are enjoying this podcast. If you would, drop me an email, rick@floridasportsman.com, and tell me what you'd like to hear about, what you'd like to know about your favorite kind of fish and how to catch them. So until next week, for Florida Sportsman Magazine, I'm Captain Rick Riles, and I'll see you on the rip.